Yo, what's going on, everybody? Welcome to another week of Between the Lines podcast with me, Daniel, and my buddy Michael, right here, episode 9. Very excited. We got a lot to talk about, on this episode. A lot of interesting things coming up. First things first, we want to apologize for not um able to go on Monday. Some technical difficulties. Just some stuff wasn't working. Uh, so yeah, but we got it to go today, Wednesday, as the day we're recording. So little minor step back right there, but we're good to go now. And let's just get right into it.
Let's do
You
it.
know, first off, I want to talk about. We talked about it a little bit a couple podcasts ago. We talked about JJ McCarthy, and in one of our like debates or whatnot, we were kind of sparked around there talking about the 2024 draft class. Um, and I'm gonna let you, Mike, kind of get on this one because I know you are a JJ McCarthy defender, as you were saying in the other podcast. So we'll let you have this one. See what's your take on it.
Yeah. I don't know if I call myself a JJ McCarthy defender, but I do think the kid has traits that I like. He definitely seems to love Justin Jefferson. Obviously, when you're a quarterback for the Minnesota Vikings, if you can find number 18, you're in a good spot. Um, I don't think he's lost a game as a starter. I may be wrong with that. But he won this past week against the Lions, obviously 14 for 25, 143 yards, two touchdowns and an interception. Really didn't light up the stat sheet, but I mean it got the job done. You beat a in division rival. Um, he also added a rushing touchdown on top of that. Um, not really impressive. If you look at the touchdown to interception ratio, it's 1-to-1. Four touchdowns this year, four picks thrown. Um, he's had 444 passing yards in 3 games played this year. He's had some injuries. Obviously, had an injury that kept him out all year last year. Um, but obviously, I watched a kid at Michigan. I thought, he's a national champion. Played under Jim Harbaugh. Very, very good. I think. Um, very good in finding his top guy. He did that especially at Michigan with Roman Wilson. Definitely knew how to find his guy when need be, and it seems like he loves Justin Jefferson. I think Justin Jefferson loves him obviously because he gives him the ball all the time. It's kind of like a Bengals situation with Jamar Chase and T Higgins. You just find those two guys the ball. It seems to work out. I'm not saying he's a top tier quarterback. He obviously just starting his career out. Didn't play all last year, his rookie year. Injury in the preseason hurt him, and he's had some minor step backs this year. But he's not lit up the stat sheet any bit. He's only thrown 444 passing yards in 3 games. Like I said, it's only 148 per game. And like I said, 1-to-1 touchdown interception ratio, four touchdowns, four picks. But um, he's able to move around in the pocket. He's able to escape the pocket. He's able to run the ball when need be if the pocket collapses and the passing game ain't working. But I think if he continues to find number 18, number three, I think he'll be all right. I think it's growing pains. I think he's trying to figure out the NFL. I think he's trying to just get himself settled in. Like I said, he's only played 3 games in his career, and he's compared to the other 2024 draft class, he's not played anywhere near the amount of games they've played. We talk about Bo Nix, Jaden Daniels, um, Drake May. You talk about those guys in that draft class. He hasn't played near at all near the same games they've played. Even Michael Penix, who didn't even start half the year last year with Kirk Cousins as a starter, um, Michael Penix has definitely started, I think, maybe 3 times the game as JJ McCarthy has. So I'm gonna definitely keep an eye on the kid. Like we said, we've kept an eye and binoculars on the 2024 draft class, especially from the quarterback position. Those five, like I said, Drake May, Caleb Williams, Jaden Daniels, Bo Nix, and JJ McCarthy, of course. You keep an eye on all five of those guys. I think they're all going to find their footing. Except for, I'm not really impressed with Michael Penix. I've obviously said that, and I'm not just saying that as a Panther fan. I think he's very inconsistent. I think I think he knows what he has to do now. He has to find, Drake London, find your number one target, just like everybody else who's young. Got to find your number one target. But For JJ McCarthy, I'm not going to say I'm a defender of him. I think he has the traits. I think he has the traits to be a good quarterback if he can find his playmakers. Obviously, Aaron Jones in the backfield helps him out. He has a good O line. I'm really impressed with this coach. I love Kevin O'Connell. I think he's a very smart offensive mind. I think he gets the most out of his guys. So I think JJBR out there in Minnesota just got to find his targets, got to find his guys, and we'll see what he does over the next few weeks.
Yeah. So I think from what I've seen from JJ McCarthy so far, um, his first couple games, going back to when they played Chicago on Monday night, and then looking back on the game against Detroit this past weekend, I saw that he seems to turn it up a little bit towards the end of the games. He makes the right reads, the right throws, and he's accurate, which I feel like I shouldn't be surprised from it, but as someone that watched him at Michigan, I feel like that's pretty reasonable. He was pretty accurate for the most part at Michigan. So coming into the NFL and making these big time throws like he did against Detroit to kind of win the game, he hit who was it? I think he hit Jordan Addison. I may be wrong. He hit Jordan Addison. It was like a go ball, or whatever, to kind of seal the game. It was pretty accurate. And on that last drive to kind of seal it after Detroit scored a touchdown, he was pretty good there. And then kind of the same thing against Chicago. Um, so that's something that I kind of like see from him. Kind of has that little fourth quarter, second half kind of mentality where he wants to, where he really turns it up. He's one of those quarterbacks where struggles at first during the first half and then gets it going in the second. That's at least what I've seen from his first couple of games as a starter. Um, but overall, I thought nonetheless impressive going into Detroit. Um, only in your couple second or third start in the NFL going into Detroit. It was pretty hot, big environment there. Watching that game as well. So if you're a Vikings fan, that's something that you would love to see from your um, basically rookie quarterback. So yeah, very impressed with JJ McCarthy there. I will give him props for that. And I think the whole Minnesota Vikings team was, rallying around him as well,
For
showing him
sure.
love after. So very impressed with him. Um, and yeah, and then moving on to our next topic, let's talk about the Los Angeles Rams and the and Matthew Stafford. I'll kind of lead off with this one. I think Matthew Stafford is playing at a very high level, MVP level, some would say. Um, and I think ever since moving to LA for Matthew Stafford, his career has been rejuvenized. He's been one of the top 10 quarterbacks ever since coming into LA, and he's always had a pretty good supporting cast around him. And I think Puka Nakua is on pace to like go and be better than Cooper Kupp was in LA. Um, because at this rate, he's going to break 1,000 yards easily,
Oh, for sure.
and I think he has a as long as he has Matthew Stafford with him for how many years left, I think he's just gonna continue to get better and better. But Matthew Stafford is really, I've loved watching him play in LA. You know, with whoever he has, Tutu Atwell has been such a nice deep threat for him. I mean, you can go deep with uh, Puka Nakua as well, but Tutu Atwell really just adds onto it as well. And when you're in a Sean McVay offense, that kind of opens the door for a lot of things. And Matthew Stafford really wasn't given that kind of like system when he was with Detroit. So when you get like two, offensive minds put together, it kind of leads to some magic. And then you add some receivers on top of that to kind of get everything going. And that leads to a lot of good things. So I think Matthew Stafford has really been playing well. Someone that we haven't really talked a whole lot on the podcast yet, but wanted to show some love. He had a phenomenal game this last week, hitting Devontae and Puka Nakua on each having touchdowns. But yeah, man, I'm really impressed with the Rams. I've always been high on the Rams. And I think I mentioned it some podcasts ago, but we were talking about their defense as well, how their defense is, very talented all around. Um, and I think they have what it takes to be true contenders in the NFC. Um, and even though they're in a stacked NFC West division with Seattle as well, and then you add San Francisco in there, and then although they're not really on the same level as them, uh, Arizona picking up a win on the road against Dallas, getting in 3-5. I know there's still a long way to go, but I think that division is one of the best in football.
Oh, for sure.
So when you have, just talent that the LA Rams have, I think they are true contenders in the NFC. So, but yeah, man, just wanted to shout out Matthew Stafford for real. I enjoy watching him play.
Sure.
Um, so I don't know if you wanted to tackle on that.
Yeah, for sure. Matthew Stafford, that's a Super Bowl champion. And I think him and the Rams, Sean McVay, they're hungry for their second together. Sean McVay, no doubt, is a top five, maybe top three head coach in the NFL, especially offensive mind wise. He seems to be able to put the ball in his playmakers' hands in the right situation every time. Just to throw some stuff out, obviously they beat down on the Saints 34-10 this past week. They're 6-2 overall. Got an impressive team. Some would say a top five team in the NFL. Definitely a top five if we're talking stat wise. They are second in NFC West, only to the Seattle Seahawks, which they're both 6-2. I think, like you said, that is going to be a very impressive race down the stretch for the NFC West. I'm very interested to see those teams battle it out. But like you said, don't count out the Cardinals. Obviously, Kyler Murray put on IR today. He'll be out for at least the next 4 weeks. So Jacoby Brissett is going to be the quarterback one for the near future. Obviously, winning to Dallas got him an impressive win. Don't know how much you can take from that. Obviously, it is the Dallas defense and Matt Eberflus defense that we know has struggled time after time this year. Definitely might see some changes on that defensive side of the ball, coaching wise soon. We'll keep an eye on that. Jerry Jones is not afraid to pull the trigger on a few coaches here and there if he needs to. But back to the Rams, man. Like you said, Stafford so impressive against New Orleans. 24 for 32, 281 passing yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions, gave the ball away none. But like you said, Puka Nakua, man. Puka Nakua is on pace to have, like you said, a better year than Cooper Kupp did. And he might turn out to be a better wide receiver in LA than Cooper Kupp was. He just seems to be able to light the stat sheet up every time he gets on the field. 7 receptions, 95 yards, and a touchdown for him. It always seems like he's teetering or over 100 yards every game. He's definitely going to surpass the 1,000 yard mark this year. And I think he may go over 1,500 yards. I don't know. We'll see. He's an impressive guy. All you got to do is get the ball in his hands, and he's going to make plays. But another guy who is a great pickup for that LA Rams team is Devontae Adams. Shout out Devontae Adams. 5 receptions, 60 yards, 2 touchdowns for him this past week. He's been a very nice addition to that wide receiver room, a little veteran voice in that wide receiver room. Um, a guy who can still play at a very good level, a good wide receiver too. I think Stafford loves his 1 and 2 and Puka and Adams. But then he also has a guy in the backfield who can tote the rock and do amazing things as well. And Kyron Williams, 25 carries, 114 yards and a touchdown for him. 452 total yards of offense for them against the Saints. Obviously, it is the Saints, but they've been doing this all year. This ain't nothing new. Just to throw some stats out there, the second passing offense in the NFL, 258 passing yards a game. Obviously, the rushing offense is a little down on that side of the ball. They're 18th in rushing offense, only 111.9 per game. But like you've said and we've said all year from the get go, is that defense. That defense is nasty, man. They got a good young core on defense, like you said, Jared Verse, um, anchoring it down, especially with Aaron Donald not on the team anymore. You were looking for those young guys to step up, and they've stepped up big time, man. They have the second overall defense in the whole NFL. They're first in fewest touchdowns allowed. They've only allowed 12 touchdowns over 8 games. That is impressive nonetheless. 12 touchdowns allowed only in eight games. They're third in the NFL in sacks. They have 27 sacks in total. So that's that's over 3 sacks a game through 8 games. That's a defense that you do not want to play. You thinking Aaron Donald retires, you have a little more leeway to do something against the front line of that defense, but it doesn't seem like they've skipped a beat at all. It seems like they've taken an extra step. They've gotten better. They have 1.5 takeaways a game. They're averaging a takeaway, if that's a pick, if that's a fumble, whatever it may be, they're averaging almost 2 takeaways a game. That defense flies around from the secondary to the linebackers to the defensive line. Um, they just have such great young core. So impressive to watch them. Obviously, the Panthers will play them in a few weeks at home. Definitely excited to see that game. But the Panthers play the whole NFC West. You still have Seattle to play at home later in the year. You have the Rams. Obviously, you lost a close one to the Cardinals earlier in the year, second game of the year. But having to play those two teams is really going to prove to us as well. Obviously we're Panther fans. We talk about the Panthers on here. It's going to prove to us what we can do. Obviously, we'll get to later on what we did in Green Bay this past weekend. But when you play two good teams like the Rams and the Seahawks, who great young coaches, great young cores, teams who just love to fly around and pass the ball, who can make plays on both sides. Um, it's definitely going to be something to watch. But yeah, shout out the Rams, man. They look like serious contenders in the NFC. I could see them being a Super Bowl team in the NFC. I wouldn't be surprised at that at all. They seem to have it working well on both sides of the ball and in special teams. Cameron Dicker, probably one of the best kickers in the league, stat wise. It just seems like in all three phases, from the coaching staff down to the players, the Rams are just hungry for another Super Bowl. Sean McVay loves doing what he does. He's very good at what he does. Let's just be honest. Let's call it how it is. Sean McVay is a top 5 coach in the NFL. I will die on that hill. I'll argue with anybody. I think any team would be lucky to have Sean McVay, a young guy who is just such a bright offensive mind and gets the most out of his players no matter who's in his system. And they do it in the passing game and the run game, like I just said. 452 total yards. Kyron Williams does it. Puka Nakua does it. Devontae Adams does it. Tutu Atwell does it, and of course Matthew Stafford does it. Um, for him to be in his mid 30s, he doesn't look like a mid 30-year-old quarterback. He looks like a young, 24-year-old quarterback who's out there just slinging the ball left and right. He's not skipping a beat. If anything, he's getting better year after year, and that's something very impressive. It's just a testament, like I said, to Sean McVay. He's a very good coach, like you said. It's a testament what he does and what he gets out of his players. Obviously, he brought a Super Bowl to LA, and I think they're looking for one more.
Yeah, man. Let's not forget about Blake Corum. Blake
Oh,
Corum
for sure,
also
sure,
adds to that running back room, who he does a little bit of everything to give Kyron a break. Do it. He does it as well on the receiving end, and as well he's a power back as well, and could also be elusive when needed.
for
And
sure.
that's something that I wasn't very high on him coming out of the draft. Just literally just looking at his size and whatnot, I didn't think what he did at Michigan was going to translate very well
Yeah,
because I didn't really have him high on my board coming out of Michigan. But I think he's found a very nice place in LA, and of course, Sean McVay has found a place for him and what he's been able to contribute to that Rams rushing game and attack, passing game as well. So shout out to Blake Corum,
sure.
doing well over there as well, backing up Kyron Williams. Um, so moving on next to the Chiefs versus the Bills. This was a matchup that I was very much looking forward to. Obviously, they play what seems like every year during the regular season, and then obviously in the playoffs as well. So this is just a matchup everyone has circled on the calendar. When they see it. Patrick Mahomes and them going on the road to face Josh Allen and the Bills. And this was I feel like this game was very much heavy towards, you look at the box score, 28-21, but really all the game, Patrick Mahomes was running for his life almost like
Yeah,
all game it felt like. Because that
sure.
Bills defense got in his face. They didn't let him scramble at all. Um, and that's kind of what Patrick Mahomes likes to feed off of, and get those big plays, get those momentum plays. He likes to scramble a lot, get out of the pocket, find scramble drills, find any open receiver he can, try to make those throws. He made a couple, but he didn't do it the whole game, and that's kind of what you want when you're facing Patrick Mahomes. You want to limit those scramble drills, scramble plays against him, and that's what they did. They limited him to that, and they got up on his face, sacked him a bunch. Um, and they did it without Ed Oliver too, one of their premier defenders on the D line. So, um, really have everyone contributing without one of their top defenders was very key for them. Um, and one guy that I want to shout out as well is Bishop. He is, I think, their free safety. He was flying around the field the whole game, batting balls down, helping tackling wise. He was flying around all game for Buffalo, making things very hard for the receivers to catch the balls. And then he also was in their face when we were trying to run the routes on him. So, and because Tony Romo pointed him out a lot on the broadcast, and watching him, it was very nice to see a young safety like him just fly around and make things difficult for Patrick Mahomes. And you don't see that very often. So, shout out to him. I thought he played very well. I thought he was one of the key defenders on defense for Buffalo. Um, and then this was also, I think, the third game back for Rashee Rice. He had a score as well, but that was kind of like during the early in the game. But overall, I think Buffalo, like always, Buffalo finds a way to outplay the Chiefs in the regular season. Um, and you kind of always feel like you're always going to see them again in the playoffs. It's just kind of like a yearly thing at this point, it feels like. Um, but also, coming into this game, a lot of people were looking at how Buffalo's pass game was going to look. They kind of struggled throwing the ball on the air. And correct me if I'm wrong, but I think Josh Allen, like what, only incompleted the ball 4 times? Is that right?
Three.
Three? Yeah, 3 times. And he was very accurate, hit his tight ends a lot, Kincaid. Um, and so I thought, attacking KC through the air, being very accurate, that also was very key into winning the game. Um, and if they didn't really get any pressure on him as well, so he was just kind of fligging it around and attacking the defense. So that was key into for them to win in this game as well. Um, and so that kind of like shut down all the questions about their pass game has regressed a little bit. Having you know Coleman and Shakir and all them. What about? Let's not forget about the tight ends. So you know, really solid job on the offensive end. It looks like Sean McDermott and Joe Brady had a game plan on what they wanted to do, and they found a way with the tight ends. So I mean, that's kind of what I got from this game. And I'm not worried about the Chiefs. It's just like a yearly thing. They kind of always find a way to struggle against them in the regular season. But yeah, that's kind of what I saw from that.
Yeah, for sure. Just to piggyback off you, like you said, it seems like Sean McDermott and Joe Brady always find a way to beat the Chiefs and Andy Reid and Spags in the regular season every time. But when it comes January, it's always a different story. I think the Bills' biggest kryptonite in the playoffs is the Kansas City Chiefs. But hey, hats off to Sean McDermott and the Bills. They're rolling right now. Obviously, like you said, 28-21 win. Allen only 3 incompletions, 273 total yards. He had a touchdown through the air and then 2 on the ground. So great game from Josh Allen. Got to give props where it's due. Dalton Kincaid showed up this week, 6 receptions, 101 yards, and a touchdown for him. But hey, James Cook showed up again. James Cook obviously had a great game against us last week. Tore our run defense up, but he did it again against the Kansas City Chiefs and Spag. 27 carries, 114 yards, and 125 total on the ground for him. So James Cook, shout out him. 2 good games back to back on the ground for him. But the Bills, the name of the game is offense. They needed to show, hey, could the offense do something like you said in the past game? And I think Josh Allen proved that. Like you said, only 3 incompletions on 26 attempts. That's pretty impressive. 273 passing yards, 414 total yards of offense. They really, dealt it in both the pass game and the run game. But what really stood out to me is they're 7 for 12 on third down, but they also were 3 and 3 in the red zone. 3 trips to the red zone, 3 touchdowns for the Bills. So they made they made their opportunities worth it when they were there. And you always got to shout out the team when they can do that. 3 for 3 in the red zone. Some teams like we'll get to later. The Packers were 1-5 in the red zone against us. So when you take 3 trips to the red zone, you score touchdowns off all 3 trips. That's pretty impressive, and that's a testament to Joe Brady and that offense. He's really built an offense in Buffalo that even when you don't have premier wide receivers, they can still win games. But like it's going to be year after year is can the Bills win come playoff time? It seems like when whoever they meet in the playoffs, they just seem to fall short every time, and they have to prove themselves in the playoffs. You can prove yourself in the regular season all you want. You can talk about how good a quarterback Josh Allen is, or how good Sean McDermott is, or how good Joe Brady is. But when it comes to time to deal the cards, you gotta prove it. When it comes time to, hey, can you make it to a Super Bowl? Can you win a Super Bowl? Can you compete for a Super Bowl? And you fall flat on your face every time in the playoffs. You got to prove it. Obviously, I think the Buffalo Bills are a talented team. I think they have talent on both sides of the ball, like you said. There's no doubt about that. If you're doing what they did on Sunday without one of their premier defenders in Ed Oliver, it's just a testament to Sean McDermott. He has a good team, but they're known as the regular season team for now. They got to prove something in the playoffs. Making the playoffs and winning in the playoffs is two different things. The Steelers, to just name a team, is a team that progressively every year makes the playoffs, but they don't produce in the playoffs. So you're known as a regular season team. You have to prove that you can win in the playoffs with the talent you have, and your talent ain't getting any younger. Josh Allen ain't getting any younger. Keon Coleman ain't getting any younger. I know he's young, but Keon Coleman's not going to get any younger. Dalton Kincaid's not going to get any younger. James Cook ain't going to get any younger. They get a year older every year. So, not many players as they get older get better. Some do, but some, slowly but surely digress, and you have to be able to win while your talent is hot. Strike when the iron's hot, as they say. So, if Josh Allen is legit this year, we'll see. Obviously we've seen it before where they beat the Chiefs in the regular season and the Chiefs give it right back to them in the playoffs, and it's just the same story over and over again, same storyline, and it's it enrages fans, but it's just how the Chiefs are. The past few years they haven't been a regular season team; they've been a playoff team. They've been a team that proves it in the playoffs. The Bills have been a regular season team; they haven't proved it in the playoffs. So, it's going to come down to, the regular season is always a good thing to see which teams can compete and which teams can't. But when it happens for a team over and over again, like the Bills who can't produce in the playoffs, it has to be pointed out and has to be talked about. They did slow down the Chiefs this past weekend. Patrick Mahomes was 15 for 34, only 250 yards, but he did throw an interception. Rashee Rice, like you said, I think it's his third game back. 4 receptions for 80 yards for him. So, he's doing his thing at wide receiver. Obviously, I think he's wide receiver 1 for them. Patrick Mahomes loves him, number 1 target. Kareem Hunt, 11 carries, 49 yards on the ground on a touchdown. Travis Kelce, you want to talk about the tight ends? Dalton Kincaid had a good game, but Kelce did too. 4 catches for 66 yards for him. He's been kind of quiet all year. He's had a few spurts here and there of good games, but 4 catches for 66 yards is good. He's gonna have to do it over and over again for Patrick if he wants to. They want to win and go to the Super Bowl again. But Hollywood Brown had a great game, 2 receptions for 73 yards. So, there's 2 or 3 guys that had great games for the Chiefs. But like you said, Patrick Mahomes is running around all game, and it messes up things. It messes up route concepts. It messes up timing. It messes up. It messes up everything on the front line as well. Like they always say, the more time a quarterback's scrambling, the more time it is for an offensive lineman to hold and try to keep a defensive player from getting to the quarterback. So it's not easy. It's not easy to play the position. It's not easy to play the position at the level that Patrick Mahomes has played it. Obviously, he can make some magic out of nothing, but not this past Sunday. The Bills definitely had their number in the regular season, but like we say, and we'll say it over and over again all season, the Bills have to prove it in the playoffs come playoff time. And the Chiefs, that they're 5-4, third in the AFC West. 2 good teams above them in the Chargers and the Broncos. But the Chiefs ain't got an easy next 3 games. They got the Broncos, they got a very impressive Indianapolis Colts team, and then they have the Dallas Cowboys, who can be a win here, loss here, and we don't know what Dallas Cowboy team is going to show up. So the next 3 for the Chiefs is really going to tell us what we want to know about them. You're 5-4, you're halfway through the season, so Do you step up and do you win games, or do you fall down flat on your face and maybe it's not the same Chiefs team anymore? Obviously, they've had a very good past few weeks, but they're going to have to prove it over the next 3 weeks. Next 3 weeks is definitely going to be a gauntlet for them. Definitely some prove it games with the Broncos and the Colts, and then Dallas. They can surprise anybody on any given Sunday. So. Um, yeah, shout out to Buffalo. Shout out to Sean McDermott. Shout out to Joe Brady. Very good game plan. Seems like they always have a good game plan in the regular season to beat Spags and Andy Reid. But again, we're going to be talking about this for the rest of the year into the playoffs. The Bills have to prove they can win come playoff time, and it's definitely something we're going to keep our eye on. We'll also, like we said, we've talked about the Chiefs a lot on this podcast. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on them. They seem to always pop up every week. They have a very impressive game or exciting game, and we're always talking about Patrick Mahomes and are the Chiefs another favorite in the Super Bowl year after year. So sitting at 5-4 and third in the AFC West, they're in a kind of a tough spot, but I think Patrick Mahomes seems to just find ways sometimes, and I think Andy Reid and him will be all right.
Yeah, I have 3 points to make from that. One, shout out Maxwell Harrison. He made his debut, NFL debut. He was the Buffalo Bills first round pick this past year. He
Yeah,
made his
yeah,
Buffalo Bills debut last week against Carolina. And he recorded a pick against Patrick Mahomes um, this week or last week. He's a very physical corner that I think Buffalo has been lacking for the past couple years. I know they have Tre'Davious White, but he's not the same Tre'Davious White that he once was when he first came to Buffalo. Obviously, taking a step back, and I think Maxwell Harrison, he is the guy that can keep up with Xavier Worthy, and not a lot of people can keep up Xavier
for sure,
Worthy,
for sure.
speed for speed. Because there was a couple plays, there was numerous plays where they were looking deep for Worthy, and guess who was right by him? Maxwell Harrison, step by step for him. So, and he ended up recording a pick against them on Xavier Worthy as well.
Yeah,
So that's someone that I think has been such an upgrade to their defense. I mean, it really showed out against this Chiefs offense. Holding his own against Xavier Worthy and Hollywood Brown, hence to why he only had two catches and holding his own against Worthy. But I think that's what Buffalo has been lacking on defense. In the previous matchups against KC, they really haven't had that corner that can really stick to their receivers. So that's someone that I was really impressed with so far during his first 2 games in the NFL. So big ups to him. I was
for
really
sure.
impressed to see that. Also, when it comes to Buffalo in the postseason, I just think it comes to lack of coaching. Every game, it's a close game because you have the players to you know put everything together on the field. But when it comes to late game, I think it all falls on the coaching. So that's like one of the main reasons why I think Buffalo hasn't been successful against them. And Spags is always finds a way to be successful at the right time, and that's during the postseason. So, hopefully, if you're a Bills fan, coaching is something that needs to be worked on because you've just like how many times they've been in like postseason 4-0 against Josh Allen and the Bills, with Mahomes and them. So you're 0-4. You don't want to make it 0-5 if you go up against them again in the playoffs. So I think if you're McDermott and you're Joe Brady and them, you have to go back and watch the film and watch what you need to do to be successful as a coaching staff, because they've been outcoached every single time. So that's just something there. And then final point is just a quick little stat. James Cook is also the only rusher to rush for over 100 yards against the Chiefs defense this year. So
Wow.
they've held all running backs to under 100 yards rushing, so far through 8 weeks prior to this past week against James Cook. So like you said, 27 carries for under 14. But yeah, he was really tearing them up in the ground game in the first half. So, uh, big ups to James Cook again. We felt the wrath 2 weeks ago. So
Yeah, for
big
sure.
ups to him. But onto the next topic. Kind of want to make this one quick, but also because we have a lot to say about the Panthers and the Packers.
Yeah, for
But
sure.
I just want to say the Seahawks. I mentioned on Twitter as well. The Seahawks are one of the best teams in the NFL. I think so. I
Oh, for
think
sure.
they're
For sure.
I think they solidified it. I think Sam Darnold is playing at such a high level right now with Jackson Smith Najigba, and then you have Torrey Horton coming on. Real
Yeah.
ones know Torrey Horton from Colorado State in his breakout game against Colorado a couple years ago. Real
Yeah.
ones know that.
Boy was hooping in that game at nighttime. At night in
Yeah.
Folsom Field in Colorado. I watched that game. Like you said, real ball knowers know Torrey Horton been that guy. And Seattle got them a steal in Torrey Horton. It was just a matter of time before he showed up and showed out, and he definitely did it this past week.
In the fifth round too, they got him in the
Yeah, they
fifth
got a
round.
steal in Torrey Horton. No
Uh,
doubt about it. They got a steal.
yeah, and he recorded what, two touchdowns. And his first touchdown, Sam Darnold threw an absolutely beautiful ball in the end zone, and then another one, I think it was like a corner route he ran, and then he got it in the end zone on a second touchdown. But granted, the Commanders' defense was kind of rattled with some injuries, but still, I
Dude,
mean, he really
shout
showed
out.
out on prime time.
Yeah, shout out. I'm not trying to talk over you. I'm sorry, but
No, you're fine.
shout out Mike McDonald, man. Dude is an impressive head coach. Like I think he is one of those young head coaches that is really like swept under the rug and not talked about enough. Like obviously there's the young head coaches like Liam Cohn in Jacksonville. You have the Sean McVays, you have the Shane Steichens. You have those guys that are talked about a lot in the NFL. But let's talk about Mike McDonald, man. Dude is an impressive head coach. I think he's had only one road loss his 2 years coaching at Seattle. Like the dude can win games. Everybody doubted. Okay, Sam Darnold, one good year in Minnesota. What's he gonna do in Seattle now? He ain't gonna do the same stuff. Yeah, they're like, oh, you lose DK Metcalf to the Steelers. He loses his wide receiver core. Nah, he's making everybody around him better. Um, yeah, another guy who last week only had three incompletions, 21 for 24, and he threw for 330 yards. That is outright impressive, man. He had more touchdowns than he had incompletions. He threw four touchdowns, only had three incompletions. The dude is just off the charts this year. He's definitely not taking a step back from last year and what he did in Minnesota. He's sixth in the NFL in passing yards with over 2,000 already through half the year. He's on pace for over 4,000 yards passing this year. Um, he's on pace for over 30 touchdowns. He's eighth in passing touchdowns. He already has 16, and he's only thrown five interceptions the whole year. But like we've talked about, that wide receiver core, it's headlined by young talent and veterans from top to bottom. Like you said, Jackson Smith and Jigba, the prime wide receiver one, took over, made it look like it was nothing after DK Metcalf left. Like you said, a fifth round steal in Torrey Horton, Colorado State guy. Cooper Kupp, the vet. Cooper Kupp is the vet in that offense. And also let's shout out Cody White. I don't know if you know who that is. I don't really know who he is. I got to do some more research on the guy. But shout out him. I'll check the stats. He balled out this past week. And I'm also going to throw in a tight end. Barner at tight end is a very impressive tight end for Sam Darnold. He loves Barner a lot, but those four in the wide receiver group, like I said, headlined by young talent and veteran talent in Jackson Smith and Jigba, Torrey Horton, Cooper Kupp, and Cody White, and then Barner at tight end. You got K3 in the backfield, Kenneth Walker the third, and you got Sam Darnold slinging the ball, Zach Charbonnet in the backfield as well, little 1-2 punch back there. I'm impressed with Seattle, man. They're top five statistically in offense and defense in the NFL right now. They're 6-2. They're first in NFC West, and some would say in some rankings they might be the number one team in the NFL. I mean, I think I can make that argument for some people. They seem to just find a way to win week after week, and they do it in such a impressive fashion. Obviously the defense as well, a very good defense as well. Mike McDonald is a defensive minded coach coming from the Ravens as a defensive coordinator, but that offense is impressive too. So, shout out Mike McDonald. I think he's swept under the rug a lot as a young head coach. Not very talked about very much, but he deserves his flowers, man. He's really got the most out of his team. Like I said, I think he's only lost one or two road games. I could be wrong. I'll double check that and get back on the next podcast and talk about it. But I think in his 2 years as a head coach, he's like 14-1 maybe on the road or something like that, which is absolutely impressive, man. He's a very good head coach. And he gets the most out of his players. If you find a fifth round pick in Torrey Horton, and Sam Darnold just helps him out and makes him look very good. You got guys like Torrey Horton and Cody White headlining your wide receiver core, and nobody would even know who those guys are. Some people won't even know who those guys are, but Sam Darnold, Mike McDonald, they're getting the most out of their guys. And like you said, man, Seattle is going to be a team to watch. Like we said earlier in the segments, Seattle versus the Rams for the NFC West is going to be such an amazing matchup to watch. Such an amazing matchup to watch over the next. I think it's 9 weeks. I think we have 9 more weeks. So definitely impressed and definitely excited to see that matchup and that battle come down to the end. But yeah, shout out Mike McDonald and the Seattle Seahawks. They have that team rolling on both sides of the ball.
And they also picked up Rashid Shaheed as well.
Yeah, they just traded for Rashid Shaheed. They sure did. So, you even add another wide
Yeah.
receiver to your group, a deep threat who's a speedy guy. I think Cooper Cup's a little banged up right now, so they're trying to add a little bit of depth to the wide receiver room. And Rashid Shaheed is a very good addition. Obviously he's done some impressive things in New Orleans over the past few years. He looked really good against us last year. But now he's getting added to a wide receiver group that is taking off and doing great things with Sam Darnold. So I know Sam Darnold's going to be loving to have a new wide receiver threat on his team. And yeah, Seattle's definitely a team to keep an eye on. We'll definitely be talking about them more as the season goes on. That's for sure.
Yeah, man. And then let's now get it into what happened this past week with the Carolina Panthers going on the road to beating the Green Bay Packers, improving to 5-4. And let me just say, nobody had us beating them.
Nobody,
Um,
but I
absolutely
did.
nobody.
You didn't
Me,
even have him beat him. You didn't even have him. Let's call it how it is.
hey. Every time I picked against us, we've won. In our predictions that we've had, every time I've had, I picked against us,
Pick the
we've won.
Saints.
Against
Pick the Saints. Pick
against
the
top
Saints.
tiers, bro. Against top teams at least. Because
Okay.
coming in, we were
Facts.
facing the Cowboys. No one had us beating the Cowboys, and no one has beaten the Packers. We now have people beat. We have us beating the Saints. A lot of people do say that. So that's what what I noticed, bro. So
Hey,
hey,
through
I'll
2 years,
take. I told you.
through 2 years of us doing predictions, name one time I've ever picked against the Carolina Panthers. Ever. You can't name one because
Hey,
I've
bro.
always picked the boys. I always pick the boys. Ride or die, no matter how much it would mess up my predictions, my prediction record. I'm riding with the Panthers through and through. We diehard fans out here. I know you're trying to be realistic. I know you're trying to get that dinner at the end of the year. I respect it. Much respect to you. Much respect to you. But hey, BY9, Dave Canales, them boys proved you wrong. Rico Dowdle proved you wrong. You know, two pumps for you, two pumps for you. Yes, sir. That's what we do, baby. We pick the Panthers to win. The Panthers win. We improve in the prediction record. So shout out BY9, shout out Dave Canales, shout out Big Rico and the pumps, the pumps. So yeah, let's do it, baby. Let's talk about it. Go ahead. Lead us off. Let's do it.
Yeah, I mean, at first, when we first, going into the game, starting in the game, it was really about possession of the ball and time management. We kept Jordan Love and the Packers off the field for a good amount during the first half. And then we really contributed it with, scores by Rico Dowdle getting himself 2 touchdowns in this game. And then, so possession of the ball was really key for us winning this game because if we didn't possess the ball for as long as we did, then that just gave Green Bay more opportunities to be successful on offense. But and that gets to another point, our defense. Shout out to our defense, man. I mean, our defense came ready to play. I think Evero has taken a drastic jump up in terms of coaching. There's still some things that I would like to nitpick off of, like for example, why is the DBs playing 10 to 12 yards off
Yeah,
on a
yeah,
crucial fourth down?
yeah. I agree. I agree.
He's just I literally said it to my TV. I'm like, boom, there's a hitch right there, and what happened? Boom, a hitch happened, and Jordan Love got the ball out quickly, so it's gonna run on fourth down. So there's some stuff that I still nitpick off of Evero that that can easily be fixed, but yeah, I mean overall, I think our defense has been playing at such a high level, and that comes with having Derek Brown back. Um, without him, I think our defense wouldn't be where it's at right now. And then when you have just everyone contributing, like Christian Rosenboom, I think he
Oh,
had 15 tackles. 15 tackles?
I think he is the first Panther linebacker since like Luke Kuechly, like 6 or 7 years ago, maybe 8 years ago. Was it eight? Maybe, I don't know what the stat was, but he's like the first Panther linebacker to record like 12 plus tackles in 2 consecutive games since Luke Kuechly did it
Yeah,
like
I know what you're
five
talking
years
about.
ago. It was like 5 years ago, I think it was, or something like that. But it was like a crazy impressive stat, which is like so unheard of. But shout out to Idro Overo. Like we said, we've got on to him, and I don't doubt we'll get on to him more as the year goes on. It's what we do as fans. We're going to get on to him. We're going to praise him. We're going to get on to him. That's what we do. That's our job. But shout out his decision to take the green dot from Roseboom and give it to Trevin Wallace. I think like Greg Olson has said, like Luke Kuechly has said on the radio broadcast, it is it has made those two guys at linebacker play more freely. You see Trevin Wallace fly around the field more. You see Christian Roseboom obviously fly around the field more. They both make great open field tackles. They both seem to be close to the play every time. They're both racking up tackles. They're both making plays. Um, and to think that Trevin Wallace was a mid round pick and only his second year starting a middle linebacker doing what he does with the green dot on his helmet, yeah, I'm very impressed. Shout out to Idro Overo. Um, some people had Green Bay top three, top five in their power rankings going into the Panther game, and a lot of people doubted us. You're going into Lambeau Field in November. It's cold. It's windy. That's their natural habitat. That's what they love to do. They love to play in games like that. They love to play in Lambeau when it's cold, when it's windy, when it's sloppy, when it's not the nice conditions like it is in Carolina. They love that stuff. That's what they're used to that. But we played the
Yeah.
game well. It was a very windy game. Obviously, the ball flew around a lot. We won the toss early in the game and elected to receive. You don't really see that in the NFL, but it's because you wanted to get field position where when you're in the fourth quarter and you got to go drive down and possibly kick a game-winning field goal, which we did with Ryan Fitzgerald. You want the win in your back, pushing the ball towards the goalpost, not pushing against it. So, shout out Tracy Smith for that one, dude. Dave Canales said Tracy Smith, our special teams coordinator, said, "Look, if we win the toss, let's take it. So in the fourth quarter, if we have to kick a game-winning field goal, which we did, let's have the win in our back so it pushes the ball and doesn't push against us." Obviously, after Rico Dowdle scored his second touchdown, he had the celebration that was called for 15-yard penalty. They took it on the kick. In the third quarter, the wind was pushing against us. So Ryan Fitzgerald's attempting a 48-yard extra point that's pushing against the wind, and he just misses it. The wind pulls it, pushes it. So, shout out to Tracy Smith. Shout out to Dave Canales receiving the ball when they won the toss. And, it's all about analytics. The NFL is all about analytics nowadays. Every time on ESPN, it's a fourth and short. You always see the ESPN analytics, go for it, punt, whatever. And the NFL is a big analytics game now. Some teams have a guy up in the booth that's literally your analytics guy, and he tells you, "Hey, do this, do this." You know what I'm saying? So, um, you know, there's guys that crunch those numbers. There's guys that are good with computers and does that stuff. And Tracy Smith was that guy on the sideline, special teams coordinator. He's done a very good job. I'm so impressed with the special teams. Sam Martin's a very good punter. Got him from Buffalo this offseason. Um, Ryan Fitzgerald, a rookie undrafted free agent kicker, replaced Eddie Pinheiro this year, and he's done such an amazing job. I'm so impressed with Ryan Fitzgerald. He's already had 2 game-winning field goals as a rookie, and he did one in Lambeau Field, which is crazy, man. That's a
Mm.
that's a tough
Mm.
atmosphere to go into. That's a tough atmosphere to go into and kick a game-winning field goal with all those fans yelling and screaming. Green Bay packs that stadium out every time. You could barely see any blue in that stadium, but he, ice in his veins, lined it up, kicked it right through the middle, and hey, we went home with a win. So, yeah, shout out to Ryan Fitzgerald. Shout out to the special teams. Shout out Coach Darren Bates. I always loved Coach Darren Bates, the assistant special teams coordinator, the big hype man on the sidelines, always hyping his guys up, always celebrating, and that's a coach that players want to play for. That's a coach that, hey, when I'm coming off the sidelines, is my coach standing on the field? He's hyping me up. He's dapping me up. He's jumping with me. It's stuff like that. It's the little things, man. They're grown men for sure, but hey, he's a grown man as well. And even grown men want to be like, hey, I want to be told I did a good job. Hey, I want to be told that I did the right thing. I stayed in my assignment on kickoff. I stayed in my assignment on punt. I did the right thing. I blocked the right guy. I made a good play. That's what people want to see, man. It's special teams is really a underlined like phase of the game. Is something like people throw under the rug. Everybody wants to see offense and defense. Everyone wants to see the flashy stuff, but special teams does amazing things as well. JJ Jansen, the longest tenure Panther long snapper, never makes mistakes. Sam Martin has been a very good punter for us. And it's little things like that. Ryan Fitzgerald, man, shout out him. Two games we've won this year is off game winning field goals from him. So, I'm very impressed with the team from the top down right now. We're only through halfway through the year, and we already have the same amount of wins as we had last year. So, with 8 games to go, you have the same amount of wins last year. You can double your win total, or you can even exceed double the win total. So, I think we can win a lot of games coming up. The Saints and the Falcons are the next two. We could see the Panthers being, I want to knock on wood, but we could see the Panthers after 2 weeks from now 3-0 in the NFC South and 7-4 overall. And I don't think anybody expected that. I don't think anybody expected that at all. But hey, I'm impressed, man. I'm impressed with Dave Canales. I'm impressed with from the top down. Let's just say it from the top down, man. Shout out, from the top down. David Tepper, Dan Morgan, Brant Tillis. They've definitely done something in the offseason that changed this whole team around. They definitely it's a different culture, man. It just seems different. It doesn't seem like the Matt Rule days. It doesn't seem like the Frank Reich days when you were dreading watching the Panthers on Sundays. You're glued to your TV no matter who we're playing. We could be playing the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills, the Patriots, whoever it is. You can play playing the top teams in the NFL, and you're glued to the TV waiting and seeing, hey, can the Panthers compete this week? And we competed. We played a tough nose game in Lambeau, and we came out with a win against a top 5 team in the NFL in most people's power rankings. So, I'll let you talk, let you say what you want, but man, I'm impressed, man. I'm very impressed with Dave Canales. Obviously, we can nitpick things all day. Dave Canales has to do better things on offense. Idris Rivera has to do better things on defense. But when it comes down to it, again, Dave Canales outcoached Matt LaFleur when it came down to it. Gutsy call. You're at midfield, and like Michael Parsons said, they're expecting pass here. They're expecting pass, trying to get in field goal range, and you do a little halfback draw. Rico Dowdle, he gets 16 yards, and hey, we win the game. So it's stuff like that. It's a chess game. It's an analytics game. It's a move on a chessboard. It's move here. It's move here. It's move here. It's a play by play game, and you got to make the right decisions in the right moments. And Dave Canales made the right decisions down the middle, down the stretch. The game winning drive. He put the ball in Bryce's hands, and Bryce made throws, and Rico Dowdle made runs. So I'm very impressed, man. We're cycling offensive lines. But shout out Ike Ekwonu, man. Shout out Ike Ekwonu for the first time ever in his career, all pro Micah Parsons, no pressures on the quarterback. It's never been done before in his career until he played the Carolina Panthers and lined up against Ike Ekwonu. We have gave Ike Ekwonu, hell for the last few years. He's made mistakes, but under this coaching staff, he's gotten better for sure. Under Dave Canales, he has made step after step growth that I would just love to see. You take him at number 6 in the NFL draft. You take an offensive lineman top 10. You obviously feel like he feels a need for you for the next 10 years. And I think he can be that long-term left tackle that just protects Bryce Young's blind side. And you can really trust the guy to just do what he needs to do on an island, no matter who the pass rusher is. And he showed it against all-pro Michael Parsons, that's for sure. But yeah, shout out Dave Canales, shout out Idris Rivera, shout out Bryce Young, shout out Rico Dowdle, 25 carries, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns. He is a true running back one, and I think we're going to turn some heads over the next few weeks. I think people don't want to give us our flowers yet, but we'll make them give it to us anyway.
Yeah, everything that you said, you made really good points, and I'm like, I don't know what it is, but like, I'm just like the biggest like hater slash like liker of Dave Canales.
Yeah,
Like
for sure, for sure, for sure.
every weekend, like I just see something that's just like it just irritates me, and I don't know if it's the same thing that irritates you, or if we're not seeing the same thing. But every weekend there's something that I see from him that I just cannot stand, and I always am like, dude, what are we doing?
Yeah,
And then there's times where he just like makes you feel like he's the greatest coach of all time. So I don't know what it is, but there's and I know the conditions weren't necessary for it. I know he probably came in this game with a game plan, but like I just want to say like compared to like even before this game, compared to like other top quarterbacks, Bryce Young only has like 15 pass attempts of 20 yards down the field,
yeah,
like 20 plus yards, air yards. And I
yeah,
feel like we could be so much better on offense if we can just if we let Bryce Young throw the ball downfield. Like, and I don't know if it's lack of separation or from receivers that we can't do it or that he just doesn't trust in our players to do that. But that's just something that I feel like we lack very hard, and we're relying too much on the running game
for sure.
because that's all we did pretty much. Bryce Young only threw the ball like what 16 times against Green
20
Bay,
through 20 times.
um, 20 times. So I feel like if you
But
add an element to like
Rico had more carries than Bryce had passing attempts. So
yeah,
rush to pass was definitely on Russian side. That's for sure.
yeah, and I mean, like I said, he probably came into the game with a game plan of like knowing like, hey, we're just gonna pound the rock. But I don't know, man. I just feel like we could be so much better on offense. Like, yeah, if the run game's not there, then we know we would have a good passing offense. And if we can like, cause I feel like the only time we pass or the max our passing goes is like the intermediate stuff, like the or in the middle stuff, like that's kind of what where the money has been with Tet. Those comeback routes and those digs. That's kind of where Tet has been very successful at, and that's where we've been kind of going. And those yak plays, but nothing like explosive that will like be a highlight reel. You know what I'm saying? Like we never throw fades to Tet at all, never. And the same goes for Xavier Leggett. We never, try to expand the offense downfield. So safeties, when they're playing Carolina, they're probably going to play down low because they're not worried about the deep stuff.
Right.
So I don't know. That's just something that I'm looking at. I'm like, we could be so much better. Like I know we're 5-4. Run game's doing good. But what happens if the run game's not there? We're not going to continuously give the ball to Dowdle and Hubbard and just hope something's there in the run game. Uh, so I don't know. That's just something I feel like we should be better on, and we should try to do more often. And this week against the Saints, um, Alonzo Taylor for the Saints, he gives Carolina troubles when he plays us. Um, it happened last year. So I don't know. Their secondary has always been pretty decent against us. Um, so I don't know. Maybe we'll have maybe we'll see it this week, but I don't know. That's just, if I had to like just say something on there. But in terms of the game against Green Bay, Trevon Moehrig, he became the fourth player out of the 9 weeks to win offensive or defensive player of the week. This week he recorded 5 tackles, 2 for loss, and an interception. So and I think he was one of our best signings this year. Got him in free agency from the Las Vegas Raiders. So having him is huge, and then just seeing the overall development of our guys week in and week out, it's been just really cool to see. We also brought in Asante Samuel on a visit today, um, and he also has other visits lined up, but I don't know the chances of we'll getting him or not, but I don't know. And I tweeted like that was like the most obvious like Minnesota Viking pickup ever.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, he's definitely a Viking.
Yeah, like I wouldn't be surprised. But he just came in there for just to see what was happening. What was Charlotte like? But yeah, man.
I
I mean,
respect it.
you nailed everything on the coffin. Rico Dowdle in the run game was tremendous, and this is his third game as a starter where he's just produced so well for us. And I mean, it was about time Dave got the memo and finally started him. I mean, I don't know why we had to wait 2 games for him to realize that, but yeah, got got that in. Should be the starter again this week, no doubt. So yeah, man, let's just have a good week this week
We'll do
against
it.
the Saints. We'll go on from there. But before we conclude the podcast, it's time for another episode of Buy or Sell Hot Takes. So I'm gonna go ahead with mine. I think my first hot take is Carolina will finish with a top 10 defense and go from top 10, or no, go from almost dead last year to top 10 this year, which marks a huge improvement in terms of Israel Evero. So, because you know how much stuff we give him, how much we gave him last year and whatnot. So, I feel like just going from that to top 10 to having finishing with a top 10 defense this year, I think will be huge. And I think so far we have been playing like a top 10 defense. Um, if you erase that Buffalo game where our defense was on the field for like almost the whole game, but yeah, so that's my first hot take. Do you buy or sell that?
Um, for now, I'm gonna sell that one. I do think we'll have a maybe top 15, top 20 defense, but you do play some tough opponents later on in the year. You have to still play Tampa Bay twice. We have to play Seattle still. Um, you gotta play Seattle still, and you gotta play the Rams still. So you have a tough little schedule coming up. The Falcons they're gonna be out for blood after us beating them 30-0. So, um, I think it can happen. I think we can get a top 10 defense, but we're gonna have to prove a lot. You got some tough opponents coming up. You got a tough schedule. But obviously, if we do like if we play like we did against the Packers, no doubt we'll be a top 10 defense at the end of the year. But right now, I'm not sure totally where we are overall defense stat wise, but I think we will finish top 20, no doubt, which is anything in top 20 is a drastic improvement from dead last year. But um,
Yeah.
yeah, top 10's a big one. Top 10 is very impressive, and I'd love to see it, but it's going to definitely take a few more weeks for me to buy that one. That's for sure.
All right. Sounds fair. What about you?
Yeah, mine is. It's not going to be a Panther thing, but it's going to be from one of the guys in the 2024 draft class. You're going to love this one. Um, Drake May MVP winner. It's been circulating on the internet. He actually is right now the number one bet nod to win the MVP. I think he's either one or two. And I think if he keeps up what he's doing, Mike Vrabel has him in the right spot. I think they could be a threat in the AFC. Plus, Drake May in only his second year winning the MVP award, which would be absolutely impressive after not winning a lot of games last year, having your head coach fired, to Mike Vrabel coming in there to his former team and having Drake May win the MVP. That'd be a crazy turnaround, and I think Kraft would be probably the happiest owner to ever step foot in the NFL, and he'd probably wipe it in everybody's face that he did that. But yeah, I'm gonna say Drake May MVP winner. Right now, he's my front runner, and I think he's a lot of people's front runner. But yeah, he's my front runner for sure. Drake May MVP.
I love the idea of Drake May winning an MVP, but I'm gonna have to sell this one for right now.
Okay. Okay.
I'm gonna have to sell it. I think, and that's not an knock to Drake May. I think he's playing phenomenal this year. Out of any or tied with Bo Nix out of that draft class right now. But I think there's other quarterbacks that are playing at a much higher rate and against harder opponents. Because right now the Patriots have played the easiest schedule out of anyone in the whole league, and they play the remaining easiest schedule out of anyone as well. Um, So, and I think you go in terms of look at Sam Darnold and Matthew Stafford, like those are guys that we talked about on this podcast
Yeah, for
that I
sure.
think are playing better than Drake May uh, so far throughout this year, and they played harder opponents. But it's still not a knock to Drake May. I think, and this was gonna be my hot take last week, but I didn't do it because I wanted to get another one in. But because I think we were already talking about another MVP hot take, whatever last week. I can't remember what it was, so I didn't want to
Josh
include
Allen,
that one. Yeah, Josh Allen. Um, I was gonna say Drake May finishes, as a MVP finalist. I was gonna say that last week,
for sure.
but I just don't see the NFL giving a second year quarterback the MVP. Um, to a guy like to Drake May, even though he could win it. I mean, there's still a lot of time left, but I don't know. Maybe it's rare. It's rare for that to happen. So I don't know. Maybe that's why I'm not as high on it as you maybe are. But yeah, I mean, it would be very cool if he did. But right now, at the moment, I will sell this one. Um, but if we come back to this like week 15, week 16, then yeah, man, I'm down to potential to have to be your potential buyer for that. So,
Bet, bet,
but
bet,
yeah,
bet.
we'll see what happens. But unless you have anything you want to add on to this podcast, the floor is all yours.
I'm
If
all
you
good,
have
man.
anything to add,
I think I'm
all
all
right,
good. I think I nailed everything I wanted to nail, and we'll be back next Monday, barring any technical difficulties. We'll be back Monday after the Saints game. So tune in to Fox 1 p.m. on Sunday. Saints versus Panthers in the bank. We'll be there, and we'll talk to y'all next Monday.
all right, man. We'll see y'all.
All right, see y'all.